This video is a fair critique. We are observing and analytically pointing. Bear in mind that opinions differ and no one's opinion is the correct one. However, we can compare current state of the MCU with source material and make assumptions here and there based on our knowledge of cinema industry as a whole. Marvel Cinematic Universe currently dominates with every movie according to the box office, so this video will most certainly not hurt the giant. It is therefore made only for those who want to hear our point of view, which, if we dare say, is not a very positive one. This should raise awareness of current copy and paste market. We are also stretching a little bit and including some pre-MCU flicks to draw some points here and there. You have been warned. We get to know main character, understand his position and goals. Several side characters appear and we get a first glimpse at the main villain. If we are talking about sequels, this step starts with an action scene that serves exactly the same purpose: story exposition and pacement style. Main character uses underdeveloped powers, fails at critical thinking or just makes mistakes in general. He either fails or partially succeeds, but with some heavy repercussions. This part serves as a moral teaching. Make us sympathize with the main character and root for his struggles. Usually planning phase. Side characters appear to aid the main lead, or at least foreshadow that they will at the right time Deus Ex Machina the final showdown. Villain is also getting out of hand, developing, dominating, doing basic evil villain stuff. Main hero faces the villain and defeats him thanks to moral lesson served in parts 2 and planning in part 3. Side characters are sometimes held as an hostage or appeared at the right time to save the day. This storyboard in variation repeats itself in every MCU movie, with the only exception being Infinity War, which is basically part 1, and the rest of the storyboard will finish itself in the next part 2, or in this case, Endgame. This really is lazy writing from any standpoint you want to take, but if you are making an argument that you do not really care about the story, you are arguing that you are a comic book fan. We shall prove you wrong in the next point. This problem is double-edged and in some cases benefits on it. But majority of the changes are really for the worst and don't portray the vision Marvel Comics set in the first place. Before we dive in, let's clarify some basic facts. The definition of hero: person who willingly risk life for the greater good, ranging from large-scale global catastrophes to trivial things like helping an old lady cross the road. Hero doesn't seek benefits or other praising. They do it because they have the power to do so. Hero is definition of good we seek in our real world. This of course is very light noted and it's not the definitive answer, just the basics. Then the note of the movies switched with Avengers and left only a bunch of arrogant people using abilities without any concerns. It's still fun seeing over-the-top action scenes filled with CGI, but the hero thing is lost. They no more resemble relatable heroes, their presentation and character portrayal is gone. The main problem is the center of the movie. The movies shouldn't be centered so much around politics and government-like patriarchy. That is the main reason Spider-Man didn't join Avengers in the Amazing Spider-Man universe. S.H.I.E.L.D. operates like a private corporation ordered by the government, like an army. They just do things because they are ordered to do so. Are they superheroes or mercenaries? The first Iron Man was a great movie because you've seen an arrogant billionaire living through a very rough experience that showed him what his arrogance and selfishness caused. So, he decides to completely rethink his view of the world and use mechanical skills not for money, but to protect others, so they would never have to live through the same thing he did. Same also goes for Captain America's first movie. Sure, It was during a war, so you could make argument he got ordered to fight, and it wasn't his free will, but it was his free will to try out a dangerous experiment that could eventually kill him. He risked his life voluntarily in order to try to obtain a superhuman strength that could protect not only a few people, but his entire country. Now, that is a heroic mindset. Those are real struggles of heroes, placing value on the obtained superpowers. If we are talking about changes for the better, at least from the design standpoint, the studio did mostly a really good job, taking 50-year-old designs and converting them to current age. For instance, in superheroes category, the progression of Captain America's old war costume to the new was handled very good. It still represents the icon without tearing the original visage down. Also, Iron Man doesn't look so cheesy as he used to. Majority of side characters like Black Widow, Nick Fury, etc. looks clean and up to date. No work doing there. To emphasize the point, it looks good, but it's hollow. It does not emit the right vibe. If you do not care about original source and just watch him for the action, superhero type stuff, hear us out on this. Now looking from the other angle, we can only wonder what is the purpose of making almost every villain in MCU laughable, underwhelming and without real character, as if only to serve purpose that needs to be served. To give a proper example of bad villain writing, Loki for instance. In the first ever Avengers issue, he almost single-handedly defeated Hulk, Iron Man, Thor and Ant-Man. However, in the movie Avengers, he is instead mocked through the entire movie, including obscene scenes like Hulk smashing him down easily, serving as a joke relief. You are also tricked to believe that he has some secret plan under his very dumbfounded look. Sadly, it's plain trickery, and at the end, he feels simple, like one block of Rubik's Cube. Proper term will be underappreciation. Sometimes we see great swing. Dr. Octopus is to this day still the best villain in all of MCU, with real motivations, desire and complex storyline. We can understand why he does things that he does. Thanos is perhaps the most menacing one. He feels like a threat, even though he is not properly developed and prior to the Infinity War only foreshadowed. Still bearable compared to Ultron, Loki, Venom and the still growing excessive library of revered superheroes. Then we have different approach, degrading the villain as possible, completely throwing out source material, like switching Mandarin, legendary Iron Man villain, with some boring and predictable run-down-the-mill villain. The problem is linked with the light note style, sometimes even stretched too far right into extreme edginess as seen in Daredevil. It clearly seems they can't find the right balance. We also need to point out the team core mindset, particularly strange tendency to break the whole premise. Avengers are supposed to be a team, combining powers. However, most of the time you get the feeling that just one Avenger and couple SHIELD agents can do the trick. What is the reason for teaming up then? But not to worry, you can at least witness filler fights, dealing with by the numbers guys, undermining the main villains even more. It takes the spotlight from the actual main villain and points it at fights you already know who is gonna win. It's sad that only Spider-Man 3 felt like a proper made team up. Spider-Man couldn't manage both Sandman and Venom at the same time. He needed the help from another hero, in this case from former villain, anti-hero. It felt really satisfying seeing Harry Osborn switching sides at the last second and taking home the torch. How does solo versus matchup holds? Lately, solo superhero movies got to the point of having a whole cavalry of side characters, just to fill space for more recognizable actors, which undoubtedly sells more tickets. But it also makes the villain seems even more overruled from the get-go. This underlines the weak villain's point perfectly. Hide the fact of imbalance by shoving in countless filler characters. kicking it off with a classic, ranging from goofy to spectacularly good. The original trilogy showed mainstream audiences how cool can superhero movie really be, swerving from original source while still capturing the heart of Peter Parker and his alter ego Spider-Man. Overall, boasting great villains, acting, and for that time storyboard and CGI, with stellar craftsmanship with iconic soundtrack. The interference from Marvel's higher staff, however, resulted in pointless merge of two movies ending in one with Spider-Man 3. But still, it holds up to this day and provides the only real spirit of Spider-Man in cinema. After this, things got out of hand fast. In desperation to top the original trilogy and rekindle excitement around Spider-Man, Sony made some horrible mistakes from the get-go. Instead of relatable nerd, casting agency decided to cast arrogant playboy-looking Andrew Garfield, pushing the swagger of Peter too far from his usual appearance, for the worst. The CGI got also absolutely out of hand, resulting in some questionable action scenes, especially in the sequel. Very terrible camera work and constant pace problems. It just didn't resonate well with the fans and with the general public. And that is a clear fact because another restart took place in an instant. Latest real motion movie feels like a caricature. To aim this version family-friendly as possible, Marvel decided to rejuvenate everybody, making Peter childish-like with no real motivation. He feels very dull and unlikable. It's a shock. Side characters got a Disney trademarketed political agenda. His usual spider jokes are a glorified fanboyish-like reactions at best, patting every MCU movie on the back. Weak villains, mediocre acting, and terrible implementation of MCU connection. Is this Spider-Man or Iron Spider-Man? To summarize things up, to this day, we are still without a real Spider-Man movie. They just can't capture the real deal. The Amazing Spider-Man comic books were not targeted at kids, nor centered around politics. We deserve better. Fans should stop arguing about which interpretation is the best and collectively unite. The animated series does everything better. Why can't we get a movie on that level? We are not blaming on MCU of course, but since this is a video about MCU, it is therefore best to just address their particular stance. This is also not about being racist or having different political view. This is not White Knight agenda. We are not happy with Caucasians casting in movies like Ghost in the Shell when in the original source the cast is all Asian. How would you like if we change Black Panther to be white, even if in the comics he is black? That is the point, is the original depiction. If you change for instance Nick Fury's color of skin just to make a statement that you are progressive, you are actually racist. We need to create great characters for every culture, not just switch colors. Let's move on to other progressive views these movies boast about. Being ill is in this day and age seen as a great thing. Being fat is actually really great for some reason. Your heart is definitely thinking otherwise. Obesity is a problem, not a great thing. It is up to you how you live your life, but if you keep throwing obese people in our faces, we will politely tell you to go work out sometimes. Up next, we have the sensation of feminism. Every woman must be depicted as so much stronger, smarter and better than any male. Captain Marvel will surely do that. It feels so sad seeing these weak characters trying so hard to be awesome. Well, your crusade is pointless. For us, characters like Ripley, Sarah Connor or Uma Thurman will always be the definition of strong women. Not Rey, not Captain Marvel. We want superhero movies, not the politically driven narrative ones. They should stop changing culture and they should stop promoting illness. It is a really bad example for younger audience that they target this film into. Stop ruining entertainment with your agenda, Marvel. The best way to fill time in movies these days is to fill them up to the brim with brain-dead jokes. Now, that is slightly over-exaggerated, but MCU relies heavily on those jokes. Let us show you the problem by giving you two examples. Now, one of these is done correctly, at the right time, not forcing family-friendly content. The other is terribly paced, completely throwing out any sense of direction. Can you guess which of these two did the joke part right? B is of course the right answer. This scene does not interfere with the main plot. It is a quick little relief by simultaneously giving Marvel fans something to chuckle at. A, on the other hand, breaks apart the pacement, added at the wrong time just for the purpose of shock value. It's cheap, like a jump scare in horror movie. These jokes are sometimes very funny, but mostly it is there just to fill up the space and made it more like a sitcom than a movie. We get it, these movies do not want to address heavy themes, but shouldn't they? Most of the original Marvel comics really depended on heavy topics. Tony Stark's alcohol problems, for instance. It showed character development. You took something from it. It's like a lesson without the boring stuff thrown around. Thanks to these mentioned jokes, the value of importance and necessity to exist is not there anymore. This problem also raises the arrogance of every character. Everybody is now throwing one-liners, trying so hard to be cool. It's just forced, too much, mostly at the wrong time. The elephant in the room is of course CGI. Improvements were definitely made over the course of 3 MCU phases. Comparing Avengers Infinity War with Amazing Spider-Man 2 is like a day and night. It does not feel like a computer game cutscene anymore. For instance, the final fight in Infinity War was superb in many cases. Departure from practical effects, however, ruins it still. The first phase movies depended much more on them. Thanks to that, these movies age much better. For instance, they literally built real-life Iron Man suit for the first movie and also really threw out a bunch of stunts in the third. Then they started relying on CGI with the Avengers, and it escalated quickly from there. It is not a sin to rely on CGI. Mad Max did it and it went very well in the end. But if you shove out new movie every year, you will get lost in the fast production. Moving on with camera work. Mixed bag with this one. Some movies, like Avengers Age of Ultron, are horrible. Some are mediocre, like Black Panther, and some are even great, like Spider-Man 3. We are of course only talking about camera work here. Unpredictable outcome on this one. The same thing can be said about acting skills. Great roster of great actors. These actors, like Robert Downey Jr. or Samuel L. Jackson, are considered great actors amongst cinema. But for some reason in MCU, they are delivering downwards generic acting at best, sacrificing emotions for swagger and coolness. They are puppeteered like robots. Music is usually generic and apart from pre-MCU phase and Avengers theme, mostly forgettable. Things like coloring, visualization and general quality is mediocre, no harm done. The real problem is direction and pacement. Characters often go from dramatic loss to a joke and then to immediate action, within a blink of an eye. They do this whole process of mourning, accepting the consequences and growing out so quick it feels rushed, and without real weight. To wrap things up, it is messy, chaotic and without real sense of direction, resulting in this whole video in all honesty. If they just cared more about their craft, MCU could be really great. The potential was always there. Finally, closing this video down, we can clearly state that the biggest problem of the MCU itself is inconsistency, as stated so far in this critique. Movies in this universe are mediocre, but there is still hope for room to grow. There is no exact order to rank these movies because there are good and also bad parts in all of them. They as a whole rank in the middle. If it weren't for the constant flood of the new movies every year, we may even be more positive-minded. If you personally think that the movies are great and feel like we are a bunch of miserable fools, feel free to accuse us in the comment section. But for now, this is all we have to say about this. Discussion is necessary, and opinions that differ a necessity. We shall be back when the time is ready.